So I cannot tell you that I am surprised or shocked anymore, but it is a sign of where we are and the divergence between the law as stated by the Supreme Court of the United States and the lack of adherence to that law by the White House is could not be more stark.
You put a lot of people in jail when you were with the Department of Justice. You seem regretful that President Trump didn't go to justice or go to jail. How would that have been accomplished politically, do you think, in the United States? And would there have been a backlash so strong that it might have been even more unsettling than his ultimate winning of the presidency?
So the one thing I would say that was is that I'm not saying that I think he should have gone to jail. I'm saying that he should have had his day in court, and the public has an absolute right to have its day in court as well. And as the public has a right to a speedy trial and to see that justice is carried out. So the issue of like what the jury does, that's really for the jury and for the prosecution to hold its, incredibly difficult, rightly standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. We don't know whether they would have met it, but we shouldn't have to ask that question now. We should have had that opportunity. But getting to the substance of your question, which is how would we fare? I think I would flip it around to I think that by not having those trials, we really undermine the idea of our country being a rule of law country. And the idea that I still think that we think of the presidency with some of the sort of hagiography and the sort of we think of it as a monarch, but each of these people is a public servant, and that's true when I was a lowly assistant United States attorney. It's true of everyone in the federal government, up to and including the president of the United States, and so they're to do the work for us, and if they have violated the law, there is and should be accountability. They're not above the law. And so I think a lot of what we are seeing now is that failure is something that lives on in, particularly given the Supreme Court's decision with respect to presidential immunity. We're seeing I won't say the benefits, we're seeing the upshot of not having had that kind of accountability and not thinking of the president as any other ordinary citizen who had a job and now he doesn't have that job. And if he committed a crime, he, like anyone else, can be held accountable for it. And to be clear, with due process and criminal defense counsel, and I can't help but say something that this president should understand more than any president, having been a criminal defendant, how important due process is. And it's something that is being denied scores of people right now who are in prison in El Salvador, who the Supreme Court has said were entitled to and still are entitled to due process of law, and they have been denied that. And I should point out that Supreme Court decision on that issue was 9-0.
You mentioned the due process. Recently in a televised interview, President Trump said not once but twice when he was asked if he thought that everybody in the United States was entitled to due process, he said, "I don't know," both times. What's the significance of that from a man who says that he is, in fact, the top law enforcement officer of the United States? He has said that more than once.
Yeah, and Stephen Miller has also said that it's something at a variation of that, which is that due process does not apply to non-citizens, and that due process only applies with respect to defendants in criminal cases. Um, all of those things, the president's comments and Stephen Miller's comments, are not the law. I mean, just to be clear, and you don't have to go back to our founding fathers or the 19th century. You can go all the way back to a Trump 2.0 decision by this Supreme Court in the El Salvador case, where the court just recently said that the people who are extracted from this country were entitled to due process. So, and just to be clear, all of the conservative justices, all of the justices appointed by Donald Trump, um, justices appointed by Democrats and Republicans, were unanimous that due process applies to all of them. So I cannot tell you that I am surprised or shocked anymore, but it is a sign of where we are and the divergence between the law as stated by the Supreme Court of the United States and the lack of adherence to that law by the White House is could not be more stark.